The Storm of Futures, by request of the Unbound Reader. Prologue. A storm without eyes. A glimpse from centuries ago. An unnamed jungle tribe seals away something beneath the soil, Naga-Waktu. Their pact is half-spoken, half-written in sigils. One child looks back before the stone prison closes. It has Tip's eyes. Chapter 1. Thunder with Eyes. The storm did not arrive. It remembered. The storm approached like a memory forgotten and remembered at once. It didn't descend with the weight of a typhoon or sweep in like a summer squall. It hovered, circled, waited. High above the dense canopy that wrapped around the village of Kediri, the sky churned with a gray so dark it bordered on black. The clouds were no longer clouds, but shapes, tangled spools of vapor that moved too deliberately to be natural. They twisted in upon themselves like serpents in argument, the gaps between them flickering with green lightning, the color of bruised limes and old copper. The jungle, too, had fallen silent. Not a bird cried, not a monkey shrieked. Not a single insect dared to pierce the suffocating stillness. It was as if the storm had reached down with invisible hands and told the world, "Be quiet. Listen." Tip stood just outside the perimeter of the village, one hand resting on a marker stone, half swallowed by moss and creeping vines. His robes, the faded color of weathered ash, whispered around his legs in the gusting wind. Beneath his hood, his slate-gray eyes watched the sky, as one might watch a sleeping predator from across a narrow room. He breathed through his nose, slow and silent. The air stank of ozone and something subtler. Wet bone, burned feathers, old silver. It was not a smell one easily forgot. Not lightning, Tip thought. Not fire. Magic. Old magic. Badly buried. A drop of rain struck the stone beside his hand. It hissed. Steam rose. That made him turn. Farther back along the path, the first torches of Kediri's outer circle began to light, lanterns glowing weakly through the rising mist. He could hear the subtle rustle of doors closing, wooden shutters groaning against frames. The village had survived 1,000 storms, from monsoon to firewind. But this was different. The villagers felt it. In the skin. In the bone. They were not preparing for the weather. They were preparing for something worse. "Tip!" He turned his head slightly. Yoma, the village herbalist, hobbled up the path with her usual scowl hidden beneath a patched headscarf. She leaned heavily on her carved cane, though her steps were sure despite her crooked spine. Behind her, the jungle loomed dark and heavy, the vines seeming to inch toward the light. "By all the little gods," she grumbled as she drew near, "are you trying to catch lightning with that damn stare of yours?" Tip didn't answer immediately. His eyes returned to the sky, narrowing. "There's something watching." "There's always something watching," she muttered, reaching his side and squinting upward. "The trees, the birds. Old ancestors were too bored to leave us alone. Watching is cheap." "No," Tip said, voice soft but steady. "This is different. It sees through." Yoma was quiet for a beat. Then she rubbed her neck, cracking it with a slow tilt of her chin. "Headache behind my right eye. Been pounding since last night." "Mine's in the left," he replied. "Same depth, same rhythm." Her eyes narrowed. "That's not medicine talking, is it?" "No." He crouched beside the marker stone, tracing a fingertip across the moss. Underneath, the stone was carved, spirals, interlocked with sigils that pulsed faintly as his finger brushed them. This was a boundary once, between here and something older. And? Tip stood slowly, eyes still on the sky. It's waking up. The jungle didn't breathe. That was what unnerved Lintang most. At 14, she had grown used to the rhythms of jungle life. The cry of the hornbills, the laughter of gibbons, the hum of wings too fast to see. Even at night, the forest sang. But now, as she sat upright in bed with the sheets tangled around her knees, she realized it wasn't just quiet. It was held, like the jungle had been told not to move. Her fingers curled into the blankets, cold sweat beading her neck. Her younger brother still snored softly on the other mat, curled around his stuffed goat like it was armor. Outside, the air felt thick, as though it had been turned to syrup. But that wasn't what woke her. It was the dream. Lintang stared at the ceiling, blinking. The details were already fading, slipping between the cracks of language. She had been floating, high above the village. She saw people below, not as people, but as threads, vibrant, writhing strands, each one a color that pulsed with life. Some tangled with others, some curled in isolation, a few shimmered like gold. But one thread was wrong, black, flickering. It didn't lie flat or twist like the others. It moved against the weave, like it wanted out. And a voice, not heard, but felt, deep inside her skull. The storm is not fate. It is a door. The sound of weaving. She clenched her fists in the blanket, her fingernails biting into her palm. She didn't understand it, but her chest ached with the weight of it, like the dream had replaced her lungs with something heavier than breath. She didn't tell anyone. Not yet. But she would draw it, over and over again, as if trying to trap it. And each time, the thread moved. Rafi crouched in the muddy underbrush, camera balanced on his thigh. Amira, are you seeing this? A few meters away, his assistant bent over a plant, half buried beneath fallen leaves. No. What? The root systems reversed. She looked over. Excuse me? He pointed. These vines are feeding upward. They're drawing something from the air, not the soil. Mira looked closer and frowned. That doesn't make any biological... Wait. The vine twitched. They both froze. Rafi slowly pulled out a scalpel, slicing a thin section from the stalk. The fluid that emerged shimmered. It glowed faintly, pulsing like a heartbeat. Okay, Amira said carefully. That's new. It's reacting to the storm, Rafi muttered, holding the sample under his pocket light. Or maybe it is the storm. She looked at him sideways. You're not going native on me, are you? He didn't answer. He looked up toward the clouds circling above Kediri. Something's bleeding into the environment. This isn't just weather. It's a presence. And from behind the temple ruins came the sound of a loom. A thread passed through weathered fingers, dry and golden. It shimmered with a light that didn't come from the sun. The weaver sat where no one had seen her arrive, cross-legged beside a broken wall older than language. A dozen children peeked from behind a pillar. She smiled at them, her eyes filled with stars. Do you know how a storm begins? None answered. She touched the loom. It spun. A tapestry unfolded. A village beneath a swirling sky. A girl with glowing eyes. A man in gray standing before fire. A serpent spiraling below the ground. And in the final thread, a door, half open, leaking black light.